Hello again, everyone. It's great seeing you once again, and thanks for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service. On this 5th day of August, 2021, I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got on the, fire danger chart. We lost the extreme fire danger areas that we had yesterday, and the area there along the north side of the Alaska Range really is kind of thinned out, the area of high fire danger. And also over the eastern interior, improvement with Yukon Flats, though still quite an area of high to very high fire danger continuing there south of the eastern Brooks Range, and kind of ends there at the Koyukuk Valley. And from there, we'll take a look at a webcam shot. This was clear skies yesterday at Koyuk, and they had temperature. They maxed out yesterday with those east winds up to 20 to 30 miles an hour, blowing the warm air out of the interior. And Koyuk there at the Norton Bay, right on the coast of Norton Bay, northeast Norton Sound. Again, 86 yesterday with sunshine. Today, different story across the entire Seward Peninsula, especially the coastal areas. Today, 56 degrees. You can see this shot taken about the same time. Definitely low clouds, areas of fog, lower visibilities. Looks like IFR actually there, 56 degrees. So 30 degree temperature drop from what they had yesterday. And from there, we'll go to the remainder of the hazardous weather graphics. There are no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere around the state for about the next 24 hours or so. But that that forecast is subject to change without notice. Otherwise, satellite imagery here, what was a pretty weakening front yesterday, it was really starting to wash out, sort of got a hold of some moisture from somewhere, and soaking rains fell over the southwest interior. In the last 12 hours, let's see, Russian Mission picked up 1 inch even of precipitation. That's a 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon. And Kalskag, Aniak, and Kilbuck had about a half an inch of precipitation, and then Bethel and Kaliganek about a quarter of an inch, and 1500s also fell at Teller. They had some thunderstorm activity today. Seward Peninsula out across the Bering Strait. It's kind of a line of lightning strikes showing up to the Russian Far East coast there across the Bering Strait, and that was much more lightning and thunderstorm activity than they had over the eastern interior. Is pretty sparse and isolated, but there were some strikes starting to show up around up toward the Yukon River there, just east of or just west of Eagle, and a couple of strikes in the Copper River Basin. Rolling this through again, you can see clouds rolled into Kodiak Island, a little bit of moisture, and upper level low kept it cool and showery over the Panhandle today. But the front moving east of there that brought the heavy rains in yesterday. Still pretty good rainfall, but a lot lighter than it was. Just about 4/10 or so of an inch falling 12 hours at Ketchikan. I'm sorry, at Metlakatla. Ketchikan had about 2/10 of an inch, as well as Klawock, and then lighter amounts, 1 to 2/10 of an inch, or in some cases nothing at all, more of a showery condition, but mostly cloudy there for the central and northern Panhandle. And out over the Bering Sea, there were some breaks today over the area there. Cloudy though at the Pribilos, but the Aleutians saw some breaks throughout the day, depending on where you were there, with the clouds moving. And then also up to the north, you can see band of clouds coming down from the north as a push of colder air coming into the area there. Not a lot of precipitation with it, anywhere from 1 to maybe 2/100 of an inch falling in the last 12 hours along the central eastern Arctic coast. Pretty sparse precipitation-wise there. Otherwise, getting in the clearing south of the Brooks Range. Temperatures still into the 70s and lower 80s across interior Alaska today. 85, the warm spot in the state that I could find at Living Good. Eagle still reached 82 degrees today, with upper 70s and lower 80s extending from, say, the Kobuk Valley and around Galena eastward. Hoosley had 79. That's kind of the cutoff point for the 80s, or temperatures near 80. And that extended eastward, also 81 at Chisana, Copper River Basin, otherwise mid to upper 70s there. And cloudier, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, with also down toward, again, Bristol Bay with the precipitation there, that weakening front moving through. Heaviest again over the southwest interior as it sort of stalls out there. And you can see the fair skies, warm temperatures in between the system dropping down from the north and the one off to the south and southwest, as well as over the panhandle. On the chart, again, scattered isolated thunderstorms starting to trip off over the Copper River Basin, eastern interior around Eagle into the Yukon. Also, western Alaska Range, a couple of lightning strikes detected, as well as up over the northwest interior a little bit. But again, the more active area, or the most active area, from the Seward Peninsula westward across the Bering Strait to the Russian Far East, kind of a line there. And again, that brought about 1 to 2/10 of an inch precipitation to some areas. A big change from the weather you had yesterday. Then that washing out front, though, hung out the moisture up, and it was wet today. Rain, cool, cloudy, all the way from southern Norton Sound coast down toward Kodiak Island, starting to dry out a little bit along the southwest coast. And then the Pribilofs, scattered showers, cloudy skies, weak trough there. Maybe affecting the eastern Aleutians, but not too bad. Some clearing, though, central Aleutians, as well as portions of the Alaska Peninsula. And that weakening low continues, 1,008 millibars now, but no gradient with it. The winds are really no factor at all with that system. There for the right off the southeast coast. Again, scattering out showers. In fact, showers ended earlier today at Juneau, and they're also decreasing over the southern panhandle at a slower rate. And forecasts for tonight, low develops there over Kotzebue Sound, Seward Peninsula, and as the pressures fall over the Seward Peninsula and the pressures build over the central eastern Arctic coast, that's going to put the squeeze in the atmosphere there between the two areas, and looking for a tightening gradient for the central western Brooks Range. Could see gusts anywhere from 30 to 45 miles an hour through the passes of mainly the western Brooks Range, and pretty gusty winds as well, maybe as high as 40 to 50 miles an hour in the normally windier areas there from Point Lay to Lisburn Hills, Cape Lisburne, and Point Hope, but no wind really of any consequence for the northwest coast and the Seward Peninsula. Weak high pressure over the eastern Bering Sea, and light winds, low clouds, fog pretty widespread along with the IFR, and moisture spreading northward will bring rain, fog, and drizzle to Adak and Atka. Should be dry over the Alaska Peninsula, and the next front bringing more of a rain producer, light rain, and IFR producer, and it will be a wind producer out there, at least initially. And the Panhandle stays unsettled and cloudy. Should be dry south central Alaska and the North Gulf Coast. And moving on to tomorrow, definitely cloudy, cooler temperatures over the central and eastern interior, with better chance of showers and thunderstorm activity as well. And there'll be mostly cloudy, chance of showers south central Alaska. Not so much for Prince William Sound, just a slight chance of a shower or two, but mostly cloudy skies. Same thing, Copper River Basin. Stays occasionally wet for the Panhandle. Still got that weak low off the coast. General cyclonic flow to the wind flow, cyclonic curvature to the wind flow, and that's going to keep it unsettled for at least through tomorrow to the eastern North Gulf Coast. System just west-southwest of the Fox Islands brings periods of rain there and breezy conditions. Otherwise, maybe some clearing there for the Alaska Peninsula into the northern Bering Sea between the two low centers under a weak ridge of high pressure. Showery for the western central Aleutians, and windy for the central western Arctic coast, north slope western Brooks Range. As you can see, let me back it up one there. Still a pretty tight gradient there for the western Arctic coast, and we'll see on Saturday that kind of comes down, weakens a little bit. Light winds on the Arctic coast north slope, variably cloudy, meaning possible sun breaks over the north slope, even the Arctic coast, but low clouds and fog are the rule. And rain spreads into Kodiak Island ahead of that warm front and that low center just north of the Alaska Peninsula, with periods of rain from the Pribilofs to the Fox Islands westward with the front to Adak, and then breaking out to scattered showers west of there. And mostly cloudy, cool, showery, southern Alaska, also in the central and northern interior. Dry, as I mentioned, for the north slope, and less shower activity now for the Panhandle, maybe some afternoon clearing. Lows for tonight in the 50s for the southeast coast, mid to upper, lower to mid 50s, southern Alaska, upper 40s for the southwest interior and the Aleutians, and 30 to 35 for the Arctic coast and north slope. And then the highs for tomorrow, 40 to 45 for the highs there, with eastern north slope maybe struggling to reach 40, as well as the Brooks Range there. But south of the mountains, cooler, lower 70s possibly. Still approaching 80, though, Northway Toke up to Eagle. And definitely cooler lower 60s out west with lower 50s along the coast. South central Alaska 60 to 70. Upper 50s and lower 60s for the Panhandle. Lows the following morning, not much different. Still in the 30s from the North Slope on out to the Arctic coast. 50 to 55 eastern interior. In the 40s out west. Followed by highs on Saturday. Near 40 for Point Barrow, otherwise mid to upper 40s for the remainder of the Arctic coast. Lower 50s reappearing for the North Slope, and 55 to 62, or in the 50s for the Brooks Range. Upper 50s, lower 60s northern interior, 65 for southern Alaska.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather Friday morning. IFR, central eastern Arctic coast into the North Slope. And actually on down to the Brooks Range, marginal VFR getting south of the mountains there into the northern Kobuk-Koyukuk Valley, but not quite into the Yukon Flats there. But as far south as, say, Point Hope. Otherwise, IFR Seward Peninsula southward across the lower Yukon River, right on out to the Delta, Kuskokwim Delta, some of the Kuskokwim Valley, and some of this Bristol Bay IFR. In fact, we got quite a zone of IFR forecast across all of southern Alaska, eastward to just off the southeast coast, otherwise marginal for the Panhandle. Kodiak Island, mostly IFR, as well as the Bering Sea Aleutians and some of the Alaska Peninsula. And for the outlook for, or the forecast for Friday afternoon, eastern interior becomes VFR, area of lingering IFR there, right over the Fairbanks, Nenana area down toward Haisley and Denali Park. South of the mountains, marginal VFR, VFR breaking out over northern Cook Inlet into the Manuska and part of the Susitna Valley, as well as the Copper River Basin, southwest mountains, Bethel VFR, King Salmon, probably VFR, Kodiak Island VFR, Alaska Peninsula, Pribilof's marginal, Aleutians IFR, northeastward there to the Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, and IFR pulling off the Arctic coast there a little bit with marginal VFR left behind, and quite a swath there from the North Slope right on down to Iliamna Lake, and IFR for the Panhandle and eastern North Gulf Coast. Saturday morning, no change out in those areas. Areas of IFR along with areas of marginal VFR and areas of VFR over the eastern interior. You can see a band of IFR from the central eastern Arctic coast to Seward Peninsula, all of the Bering Sea, right into the coast there, southwest coast, Alaska Peninsula, Aleutians, all IFR. Kodiak Islands and Fognak Island, southern Cook Inlet, Kachemak, Kamishak Bays into the southern Kuskokwim Valley starts out VFR. And for the afternoon, that area expands. Yukon Kuskokwim Delta, most of the Kuskokwim Valley into Norton Sound there, VFR, IFR, solid IFR, Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, Bering Sea to the Bering Strait. Some IFR, central Arctic coast, just hugging right along the coastline on the east side there, and the band of IFR off the southeast coast. For the passes tomorrow, Anatuvik, look for kind of a downward trend in conditions. Best conditions or flying conditions will be, best chance of VFR will be in the early part of the day, and the least chance in the afternoon. Could actually go IFR possibly for both those passes there, but a downward trend is probably the way to look at it, as opposed to the category exactly which it'll be. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasional marginal VFR, trending a little better maybe in the afternoon. Rainy. Start out IFR there, trending toward marginal VFR. Improvement during the day. Windy, occasionally marginal. Isabel, occasional marginal VFR. And Mentasta, optimistically holding at VFR conditions, either entrance. And for Tanita, marginal VFR to start, lowest conditions early on, best conditions into the afternoon, latter part of the afternoon, and on either approach. Portage, IFR to VFR. So again, with this pass as well, lowest conditions early, better conditions in the afternoon. And Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR trending toward IFR though. And for the freezing levels, quite a push of cold air coming down from the Arctic into the eastern North Slope and Arctic coast there. You can see the surface right on the central coast, 2,000 feet. Eastern coast, quite a gradient there across the Brooks Range. Just south of the mountains, 10,000 feet through the central interior. With upper high pressure holding, but slowly weakening. 6,000 feet off the southwest coast and about 8,000 feet there for the Panhandle. And looking at icing, Light to isolated moderate icing of the Rime variety for the southeast coast. Areas of mixed icing there over the interior, Bristol Bay, western Alaska range, and maybe the Kuskokwim Valley, as well as the central interior with that boundary with the colder air to the north, milder conditions to the south, and areas of icing potential out over the Aleutians. Jet stream, upper level lows across the central southern Bering Sea, main jet along and south of the Aleutians, same pattern there in the Gulf of Alaska, strongest jet south of the area. Then those westerlies coming around that cold upper trough up to 75 knots out of the west over the eastern Arctic coast, and 9,000, 3,000, and to turbulence. Moderate chop, western Arctic coast, as well as the Fox Islands, surface to 5,000 feet.
Greetings, fellow stargazers. Trace here, and the darkness next week will make seeing the Perseid meteor shower so good. To find the show, hit the sky between 2 and 4 a.m. on August 11th or 12th and look east. If conditions are right, the shower can peak at an incredible 50 to 100 meteors per hour, more than 2 every minute. And with the new moon, you do not want to miss this one. It's going to be really dark. The Perseids shower every year as Earth passes through the debris left from the comet Swift-Tuttle. They appear to emanate from the constellation Perseus, just below the chair of Cassiopeia. And this year, that new moon, again, is going to be dark. There'll be a great view. I love meteor showers. It's a great excuse to stay up late and lay outside on a blanket with your family or friends. Enjoy the night and keep looking up.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and we have a special guest in the studio today. We welcome Amanda Terborg of the Aviation Weather Center. Thanks for joining us, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Amanda's flown in all the way from Kansas City, and for those of you that don't know, the Aviation Weather Center serves the lower 48 for aviators, just as the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit here in Anchorage serves all of Alaska. So I kind of wonder, what's the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City doing to help out Alaska, Amanda?
Yeah, you know, we do a lot of collaboration work with our sister station up here. Lately, we've been doing a lot of work, especially in the satellite meteorology.
Okay.
In particular, we have been looking at ways to better identify icing conditions in clouds, which is a big deal up here because, as I'm coming to find out, even though I'm not from here, you guys have a lot of pilots here.
You have a lot of pilots. In fact, when you say you can't get there from here, that's how you get there.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so with icing potential then, what's Kansas City working on?
Well, we are working on something that will help us, again, identify the icing in the clouds. You don't want ice on your aircraft.
No.
Not only does it add a whole bunch of extra weight to your airframe when it attaches to the wings and the nose cone, but it can also mess with your aerodynamics.
Right.
And in the most serious conditions, that can mess with it enough that you can actually crash.
It changes the shape of the wing, and that makes it sometimes impossible to fly, right?
It does, yeah. So we want to figure out a way to better forecast for that.
Makes sense.
Now this particular image is over Alaska. The colors here are a little goofy. It doesn't look like your run-of-the-mill satellite image.
Okay.
But the red is where you have liquid clouds and the blue is ice. But again, it really doesn't tell you a lot where you have icing conditions in that cloud. Because in those clouds there's little droplets and they're cold and they're actually below freezing, but they're still liquid. And that makes them sticky.
Okay.
So when an aircraft flies through there, those droplets are sticking to the aircraft and it can happen amazingly fast.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to find. And there is a product called the Aircraft Flight Icing Threat that does this. And it's basically looking at the temperature of the cloud, and it's also looking at the size of the droplets to identify a probability and intensity of those icing conditions.
Okay.
And if you flip to the next image, this is a case from Juneau, Alaska, where this probably wouldn't have been the best day to fly around Juneau.
Okay.
Now there was an area of moisture that pushed south from the southwest up along the coast that pushed in a stratus layer. And in the stratus layer there was a lot of those super cooled liquid drops or a lot of stickiness.
Okay.
And so the flight icing threat was able to, in the pinks and the reds there, was able to identify where that icing was. Now this is really cool. You know, it's really cool to be able to identify that. There is, you know, of course, caveats to every product. Much as we wish it would happen, sun doesn't shine all the time, unless, I guess, if you live in northern Alaska during the summertime.
Right.
But we need that sun to be able to bounce off those clouds and to be able to see where those super cool drops are.
Okay, so it's a daytime only tool.
It is, yeah.
forecasters. Okay.
Yeah. Right now, of course, we're in the era of advanced satellite technology, and there is a
Right.
satellite that can actually use moonlight to see clouds.
Yes.
And so sometime in the future, we hope to be able to do that.
Okay.
Another thing that is a bit of a challenge is multiple layers of clouds. You can only see so far through a thick cloud.
Okay.
And if it's thick enough, sometimes you can't see a layer of icing that's below there.
Right. Right.
But even besides those caveats, this product has a lot of potential to help out Alaskan aviators here.
Well, it sounds like a really big deal, and something that forecasters at the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit could use probably on a daily basis, and especially in the middle of a really big storm.
Yeah, I would think so.
Do you have a really good success story in the lower 48 using this tool?
It's a fairly new product, and so we're still evaluating it. But yeah, we've had a lot of cases where we have seen that it does tend to capture those icing conditions.
Okay, very good. Well, Amanda, thanks so much for sharing some of the very interesting satellite imagery and the tools that you're using there at the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City with us here in Alaska. People can probably find some of this information online, right?
Yeah, here is a website here. It's a page from NASA Langley, and they have this imagery as well as a bunch of other satellite imagery that you can take a look at.
Okay, great. And I'm sure our friends at the Alaska Aviation Weather Center and the unit will be using that in the coming months there with your training and your help there to learn more about that tool to help Alaska aviators any day of the year. That's wonderful stuff. So thanks again for joining us, Amanda, and we welcome you to view any of our Alaska weather facts on YouTube anytime at the address below, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Back looking at today's sea ice analysis, not much different from yesterday. Some areas of ice still hugging the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and then as you enter get out toward the Barter Island area, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, of course, it thins out to just about sea ice free. And not a lot of change expected over the next several days. And moving on to coastal water forecasts, we've got, there we go, 15-knot winds from the south on the south coast, central coast toward Port Alexander, east at 15, and then up to the north there, say in toward Elephant Cove or the north coast, westerlies at 10 to 15 knots, southeast 15 for Lynn Canal, south 15 Stevens Passage, and Clarence Strait. Light winds out of the southeast, only at 10 knots. Outlook for Saturday, west winds 10 knots with the eastern North Gulf Coast, otherwise along the coast of the Panhandle, outer coastline, northwest winds at 15 knots with 6-foot seas. Pretty uniform both for the wind and wave heights. And the inside water is not much different, a little lighter though, maybe a little more variable to west 15 knots, Clarence Strait. Otherwise central northern areas, south at 15. Prince William Sound, light variable winds tomorrow at 10 knots, seas slight. Cook Inlet, south 15, seas 4 feet. Small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay. 25-knot winds out of the west with 6-foot seas, and the Barren Islands, west winds 20 knots, southwest 20 for the western North Gulf Coast, and west 15 there for the east side around Middleton Island. And then for Saturday, light winds continue for Prince William Sound, variable to southeast at 10, and the eastern North Gulf Coast, southwest of 15, seas 5 feet, and those gradually pick up to 20 knots for the western North Gulf Coast. To small craft advisories from the southwest for the Barren Islands at 25 knots, southeast 25 for Kamishak Bay, and southern Cook Inlet, south at 15, southwest 10 for northern Cook Inlet. Kodiak Island, small craft advisories, west winds 25 knots, seas 5 to 6 feet, and for Bristol Bay, small craft advisories, west winds 25 knots, Sitkinak to Castle Cape, west winds 25 knots, and for the Alaska Peninsula, west winds 15 knots. And the outlook for Saturday for the peninsula, Alaska Peninsula, small craft advisories, a good south wind at 30 knots with 7 to 10 foot seas, and small craft advisories on the higher end there for Bristol Bay, southeast at 30 knots, and south to southwest, 25 knots, Kodiak Island on down from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, Shelikof Strait though east at 20. Fox Islands, Unalaska Island, southeast 20 to 30 knots, east southeast 20 to 30 knots, Runemac Island, and small craft advisories with the Pacific side of Adak and Atka for east winds at 25 knots, but western Aleutians, light variable winds at 10 knots, seas 4 to 5 feet. For Saturday, north 15 knots, Shemia to Kiska, and Chitka Island northwest at 20, west winds 20 knots. There for Adak and Atka. Small craft advisories for the Fox Islands, southwest 25 knots with seas 5 to 10 feet. Southwest coast, west-southwest tomorrow, 15 knots. Variable winds for St. Matthew Island, southeast 15 for the Pribilofs, and small craft advisory, St. Lawrence Island, westerlies at 25 knots, southwest 20, Norton Sound. Norton Sound, those winds come down to west are going variable, down to 10 knots. Seas slide east 15 for St. Lawrence Island. St. Matthew Island, small craft advisories, north winds 25 knots. Northeast 30 knots for the Yukon Delta coast, and east 30 knots, Kuskokwim Delta coast. Pribilofs, small craft advisories, northeast 30 knots, sustained, sea 7 feet. And the eastern Multimedia Sea coast, north to northwest at 10 to 15 knots, slight seas. Not much different for the central coast there, north at 15 with 3-foot seas, but really pick up there as you head west. 30-knot winds out of the northeast for the western Arctic coast, and then full gales there, 40 knots sustained from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, seas 15 feet, and then 30-knot northerlies from Cape Thompson to Wales. And for Saturday, small craft advisories, western Arctic coast, all the way down to Wales, northeast 25 to 30 knots, 8 to 13-foot seas. Eastern Multimedia Sea coast, pretty light winds, north 5 to 10, slight seas. Central coast, not too bad, north at 15. And for tonight, cold air comes down out of the Arctic, lowering the snow level, fall levels of the eastern Arctic coast and the eastern Brooks Range area. Otherwise, cloudy, cooler conditions, areas of rain, Tanana Valley or showers down into the Kuskokwim Valley, all the way down to Kodiak Island, and stays kind of damp and unsettled for the Panhandle. Outlook for Friday, cloudy and cooler and wetter over the interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.